It is yet time again to return to another episode. And if you don't know what the series is, and you just clicked on this for the first time, let me recap you just a little bit. This is the series to find out what the better game is between both fantastic games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. These games are both open world bundles of fun and have some puzzles to them too, because what would a Zelda game be without puzzles? So far we have talked about the better tutorial and intro with Tears of the Kingdom taking 1 point, and in the next episode we talked about speedrunning with Breath of the Wild taking 1 point. Yes, that's right, it is currently a tie between the two, but not for much longer, because today we are talking about the gameplay and all the old and new features in both games. The categories for today are the beginning powers, that being the runes from Breath of the Wild, and things like Ascend and Alter Hand and Tears of the Kingdom, the environment around you, designs and controls, and that's it. If you don't know by now, even though we are in the 3rd episode, at the end of all the mini categories, I let my subscribers, which are you guys, and if it's not you, then you should probably subscribe, pick which game they think is better for the overall category. The winning vote basically adds another mini category point, which can boost the overall score of the game. How do you do that? Well, I'm glad I asked, because you definitely didn't, unless you did, but I'm gonna tell you anyways. After every episode goes live, I launch a poll in the channel to vote. In fact, as you watch this, there probably is a poll right now, so get your votes in. Alright, that's enough talk. It's about time to get into this. I can already tell this is gonna be a long one. It's no secret that you get special items or special powers in Zelda games. I mean, it would be pretty boring if you had like one single sword in the whole game and had no special abilities. In Breath of the Wild, you were given a mission to go collect these treasures and shrines so you can exchange it for a paraglider from an old man. Of course, that old man was a lying snake and made you get more, but we'll get into the story part of this game in another episode. The point is, in those 4 shrines that you travel to, you get a new ability through each. Magnesis is the power to manipulate metal objects, lift things up and down, or if you want to go with the exact game description, manipulate metallic objects using magnetism. Okay, I was pretty close, and to be fair, I actually completely guessed the words with my original description, so A for effort. Anyways, you use Magnesis for plenty of things. Maybe you need to grab a chest that's far away from you, or want to drop something on a Korok. Whatever the case is, Magnesis can be pretty useful. All of the powers you get from the main 4 shrines, and this is for both games, they're all used or needed for future puzzles in other shrines or dungeons, or maybe just outside somewhere in Hyrule. Magnesis is a fun ability to use because it makes you feel powerful and just is cool and unique ability. Bombs are another rune you get. It actually gives you a circle bomb and a square bomb, and because of how great and useful these things are for glitches, you already know I love these. They work how you would think. You throw them and can detonate them. They can break rocks that block off something, or you could throw them at Koroks. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll stop talking about torturing Koroks. I won't stop doing it in game, but I'll stop okay. Another power you can get from a shrine is Stasis. Stasis is the ability to manipulate time on objects or freeze it, and use it to your advantage. Okay, but now I'm curious how close I got to the actual description. Stop the flow of time for an object. Object stopped in time will store kinetic energy. Alright, so you didn't have to go full on science on me. Stasis I actually don't remember using much in my playthrough of Breath of the Wild. You just freeze objects and can hit them away. And later in the game you can actually upgrade these powers, and Stasis can freeze enemies, so I guess that's useful. I know you can use Stasis for really good combat tricks, but I'm not a skilled Zelda player. Okay, and lastly for Breath of the Wild, we have Cryonis. With Cryonis you can freeze water and make ice blocks, so if there's a river to cross and you don't have much stamina, because you'll drown in the water if you run out of stamina, you can just make blocks of ice and cross with it. Also, another thing Cryonis is good for is if there's a door on top of water, but it's closed, just plop an ice block down and you'll open the door. But yeah, that's Cryonis. I don't really know what else you would use for it. On to Tears of the Kingdom abilities. It's kind of the same. An old goat man kind of tells you just go open a door, and I think you can guess where that gets you. Yeah, you gotta do some shrines. Again, in these shrines you get new powers, except at first you only have to go to 3, and actually one of the powers isn't even given to you by a shrine, but by Zelda herself, or some spirit version of her in the past reaching out to Link in the future. Time travel. Anyways, you get Ultra Hand from a shrine. What is Ultra Hand? I'm glad you asked. It's just Magnesis on steroids. Okay, but seriously, it's way more than that. Ultra Hand gives you the ability to lift objects, not just metal. Wow, okay, so that's so much better because you can lift other things that aren't metal. Crazy, right? Okay, I know, there's more to that too. The best part of Ultra Hand is you can build. So Link can now crank 90s in Zelda. Help me! Help me! Okay, but in all seriousness, this power is really cool. It starts your brain to start imagining things, and you could just build all kinds of things like cars and flying machines and death traps for Koroks, and it's too great. Oh yeah, and you can pick up Koroks with Ultra Hand. power. Another Tears of the Kingdom power is Fuse. Fusing is actually really cool and also really funny. You can basically make whatever weapon you want. Want to make a Death Scythe? You Fuse is your power. Want to make a Rock Hammer? Fuse is your power. Want to make a toy Steel Shield? You get the idea. Fuse is also great for other things. For example, you can fuse things to your arrows like elemental abilities and make ice arrows, fire arrows, shock arrows, meat arrows. You can make whatever you like, and some items you fuse to an arrow increases an arrow's damage. Yes, I know in Breath of the Wild those were already just items, but honestly, I think it's cool to make your own like fuse combos. Fuse doesn't fix the breaking weapons problem that Breath of the Wild had, but you can definitely increase its attack and strength, which can increase its durability. Ascend is yet another power in the game. It allows Link to shoot himself through solid objects or ceilings and appear at the top. It's a really fun ability to use and can also prove useful to surprising enemies. The last power in this game is Recall. Recall lets you reverse an object's movement, and it's actually proven useful to me many times when my hover bike falls off an edge and I need to get it back, or when you want to do funny things like spin a weapon around and hit enemies. Before I decide what game wins for this category, I want to say something you are all probably thinking. What about the champion and sage abilities? Those are powers too, and yes, I do agree with that. However, I want to save that for the dungeons video. So we will get to that some other time, and I'm sorry to whoever wanted to see that in this video. Now, let's see which game wins the category of better powers. Let's rank each power to a parallel power in Breath of the Wild. Magnesis and Ultra Hand. I think Ultra Hand wins because it can build things and lift things. Bombs and Ascend, these are both so great abilities, but Bombs because of all the cool glitches and fun things you can do with them. Recall and Stasis, I actually really liked Recall, because unlike Stasis, it did prove really useful. Sorry, not to mention it was funny. When a moblin throws a bomb barrel at you, you just chuck it back with Recall. I know some people would definitely be angered with this decision, but it's just my opinion. Cryonis and Fuse. Cryonis honestly felt very useless to me. It was cool at times and helped in certain puzzles, but Fuse is just so much better. And so with that, Tears of the Kingdom wins Best Powers. That adds 1 point to Tears of the Kingdom. Okay, let's talk about Link's surroundings in Breath of the Wild. But before we do that, let's back it up even further. Imagine that you were playing Breath of the Wild for the first time again. You walk outside the Shrine of Resurrection and see just how big the outside world is. This is the first time Zelda has looked like this. Other Zelda games have always followed a more linear path, and sure, the world still may be a bit open in some other games, but the actual structure of it is still pretty linear. For example, I've been playing Skyward Sword for the past few months, and you have to do the dungeons laid out to you in a certain order in order to progress, but in Breath of the Wild, you have the freedom to choose wherever you want to go first. So also the graphics look way different to any other Zelda game, and it introduced totally new mechanics like climbing. So there was quite a lot to explore in this brand new Zelda game. There are many different regions consisting of snow regions where you need warm clothing or food to travel, a desert region where again you need special clothing to survive, a water region which the design is just absolutely beautiful at Zora's Domain, plenty of grasslands, a jungle-like region, a fiery region with a volcano, and if you're someone who has played Zelda, you know the regions I'm listing here like Hebra, Rito Village, Gerudo Town, Lanayru with Zora's Domain, which I'm not used to calling a desert region because I've been playing lots of Skyward Sword, which is a desert region in Skyward Sword. Grasslands all over the place, but also being Hyrule filled with lots of guardians, which are enemies that would shoot lasers at you. Faron being a tropical region where there are some Zonai ruins, which ties into Tears of the Kingdom, and Goron City and Death Mountain being in the Elden region. There is a lot to explore in this game, and you can do it all with new mechanics like climbing, paragliding, and you can even get a horse friend. Getting to new regions can take a bit of time, but the game is all about exploration with enemies and things catching your eyes on the way. Villages like Hateno and Kakariko always made me feel safe, and when we had to build up our own village, Terrytown, that was one of the coolest quests. You help build housing and shops and even arrange a wedding. It's something that truly is special. Going back to the Guardians, which I mentioned earlier, those things would frighten you out of the blue. 1 minute, you're just on your way somewhere, and then you hear the piano music, which gives you this anxious feeling and makes you want to run as fast as you can. This is something that I miss from Tears of the Kingdom, because in Tears of the Kingdom, this enemy was absent from the whole game. Another thing that helped with the exploration of Hyrule and Breath of the Wild were the Sheikah Towers and Shrines. The Shrines I've already mentioned plenty of times, which are these puzzles that give you Spirit Orbs, and when you get 4 Spirit Orbs, you can exchange it for a heart container or a new stamina vessel. However, these shrines also count as a teleportation point, meaning if you need to get somewhere fast, you can just warp to a shrine near that area. Sheikah Towers are also warp points, so you have to face the danger the tower presents and climb up to the top of it to activate it. Once you activate it, it now acts as a teleportation pad, but it also gives the map of that area to Link Sheikah Slate. Okay, that is all I can think of for the environment in Breath of the Wild, unless you want to talk about all 900 Korok seeds to get and how you get a prize of Korok fruit for doing all of that. That is why we hate Koroks. On to Tears of the Kingdom's environment. I know lots of people say that Tears of the Kingdom's map was just copy and paste, and while I do agree it could have been better, it also added a lot of cool things, and that's something that I think we all forget. When watching the trailers before the game came out, all people were shown was some of the Great Sky Island, which is the starting island in the game, and the surface below. Let's start with the Great Sky Island. This environment is actually really cool. It's a large piece of land floating in the clouds, with cool puzzles to complete while trying to get to the shrines. It introduces you to new things like making cool minecarts with your new power, what to do if you are in a very dark place, and just so much more. This part of the game did feel like a total new game to me. Yes, it has the same formula with the shrines, and the climbing, stamina wheel, it's all the same there. But they did it in a great place that just doesn't feel like Hyrule anymore. After you complete the Grey Sky Island, you dive back down to where things took place in Breath of the Wild. Immediately off the bat, you can see some things did change. Hyrule Castle is now floating in the air, and instead of lava coming out of Death Mountain Volcano, you see gloom. Gloom is a new substance in this game that looks similar to Malice. Malice in Breath of the Wild was Ganon's dark energy that spreads through some parts of Hyrule, and there was plenty of it in Hyrule Castle, and also a lot of it in the Divine Beasts, which are the dungeons of Breath of the Wild. And when you step in Malice, all of it did was take away your hearts. However, Gloom in Tears of the Kingdom does more than that. Instead of just temporarily draining your hearts, it actually takes away a heart. You cannot heal it, and the only ways to get your heart back is to go into the light, which sounds like no problem because all of Tears of the Kingdom is either in the sky or on the surface, right? Right, guys? Right? The reason the Grey Sky Island showed us darkness for a minor bit and how to use Bright Bloom Seeds was not just a fun little part of that cave. It is to prepare you for what lies ahead. Under the surface lies the depths of Hyrule, complete darkness. Nowhere was the depths advertised in Nintendo's ads or trailers. Okay, that's not exactly true, they showed a small bit, but no one knew it would be a complete, underworld. Tears of the Kingdom's trailers always showed the Sky Island spread through the skies and what was needed to be done on the surface. Nintendo kept a huge part of the game from us, and I'm personally glad they did because everyone had the same reaction.
What the hell? I reached the depths. There's 3 aspects to the map.
Whoa! Stop! What is this? There's a whole damn map under here? What? Do you mean? I can't see anything. It is so dark. Wait, is this another shrine? What is this? Is it an underground tower? The depths. The light root dispelled the darkness and brightened the surrounding area. Oh. Oh. So this game is big.
Tears of the Kingdom's depths reach under all of the surface. Through the depths there are things called light roots, which when you activate them, they shoot beams of light outwards, which lights up the depths. It also acts as a teleport point and a map. And huge spoiler alert, I left out a major power from last category because there is a secret power in the depths. Auto build. Auto build lets you save your past vehicle designs and build them instantly. And if you have enough Zonite or the right materials, Zonite can be found in some caves, but mainly in the depths. And the way you get this auto build power is by going to the Great Abandoned Central Mine, where you will find none other than the one and only Master Koga. I'm really glad how they brought Master Koga back into this game, and they made the Yeek clan more present too. I'll probably go more over this in the story video though. One great thing about exploring in Tears of the Kingdom is that there are many more ways to do it. Instead of just climbing or horseback, you can make flying vehicles, make cars, use recall on falling rocks from the skies, and glide off sky islands. There are so many more ways to explore in this game. So I've talked about the depths a bit, but what else is new about the surface? Well yes, the surface is mostly the same as Breath of the Wild, but the nice thing about Tears of the Kingdom is you can see what has changed and talk to NPCs and figure out what happened in between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I think people stare at the surface in this game and are like, that's copy and paste from the last game. But you must remember it is a direct sequel to that last game, so some things are going to stay the same. And even so, the main regions of the surface has changed. Frito Village is now frozen over, and all the adults can't be found when you first go there. Death Mountain's lava has all dried up, and all the Gorons who lived there are out of control. Brown goo is falling from the sky into Zora's domain, and in Gerudo Town, there are sand shrouds everywhere that block your vision. This does change up the game, and again, it's really interesting to see how the characters from the past game react to these events, and how these places have changed. Now, one thing I can agree with is, yeah, the sky islands were pretty weak. They're very cool, but some of them are just there and there's nothing to do on them. And a lot of them are really just small pieces of land. Really, the only sky island that stands out to me is the tutorial island. For advertising a lot about the skies, they definitely could have done more. There are some highlights where some sky islands have puzzles and challenges, like the diving challenge, and there are sky labyrinths and, circle labyrinths, which are very cool. Not labyrinths, but circle puzzles. For this category, I honestly cannot decide which one wins. When looking at Breath of the Wild, it is the original game that created most of the environment around you. Tears of the Kingdom changes up that environment in some new ways, but also may not add enough to do in the skies. And even with the depths being there, it can get pretty boring in the depths after a while. So for this category, I have thought to ask a few people what they think on this topic. Here is what they said. This one is coming from one of my friends. Tears of the Kingdom. It adds more than Breath of the Wild. Yeah, that's it. This next one is from my cousin, and he says, I think I like the Tears of the Kingdom world better because it's so cool to have the sky world. Sure, it's not as full as it should be, but neither was the land world in Breath of the Wild. The depths is also awesome, but at the same time also feels empty or repetitive, coming from the guy who got all the light roots. This last one is from another friend of mine. He says, I like the Tears of the Kingdom environment a lot, but also part of that I think is maybe because I just like more vertical environments in games. And honestly, while I was writing this, I'm now realizing that yes, the Tears of the Kingdom's environment is obviously better. It added things and didn't take away as much. And I mean, yes, there are things like having guardians that I do miss, but I'm up for new things too, and there is actually a lot they added, like blue mans. So concluding this category, the Tears of the Kingdom is a better environment. Breath of the Wild was the base of that environment, and Tears expands it. So this point goes to Tears of the Kingdom. Alright, so for this category I just wanted to go over things I missed, and some more new things compared to old things. For example, let's take a look at the Breath of the Wild UI menu. The coloring is darker. For the Tears of the Kingdom, it's more light and expanded, and I personally think I like the design of the Breath of the Wild one more. However, the Tears of the Kingdom one is easier to navigate. For Breath of the Wild, you had to use the stick to scroll through everything. With the new Tears menu, you can press L and R to skip a whole section, which makes it so much easier. Some more things Tears added that Breath of the Wild did not have. In Tears of the Kingdom, you can hold things out and throw them, like choo-choo jellies and bombs and other items. And honestly shocked me when I remembered you couldn't do this in Breath of the Wild. This just makes the gameplay so much more fun. And there are new items like puff shrooms that can cloud where you are and make you invisible to enemies. And there are like unlimited fuse combos you can do in this game. Zonai devices are crazy too. It gives you so much freedom for building things like vehicles, but you can also make little mechs to attack enemies. Construct heads and homing cards with a cannon. This game is just so much fun with the things you can create. Breath of the Wild had something major that was not in Tears of the Kingdom. A lot of Sheikah technology. I really want to touch on this a bit more in the story video, but I just want to say Tears of the Kingdom could have done so much more with this plot point, and they didn't do anything. Overall though, I still think that Tears of the Kingdom had better design and gameplay elements than Breath of the Wild. The two are both awesome games and have different ways to play. Breath of the Wild being more of like a based exploration video game, and Tears of the Kingdom getting your imagination to start and build. Remember though that I asked you all what you think the better game is for its gameplay and other elements, and the final poll result was 85% Tears of the Kingdom and 15% Breath of the Wild. Thank you all so much for joining me in this episode, and I will see you in my next video about dungeons. And I apologize, my voice is kind of like it's kind of like dead right now, so I'm sorry if you couldn't understand everything I said. Thanks all, and have a great day.